All right, so talk a little bit about how we're going to roll out the vaccination process here at Cook Children. So first thing I have to say is that anything that I'm presenting could change in the next hour to today, just because there continue to be discussions about the allocation, shipping, handling process. So clarification calls were still going on this morning, but as of right now, I'm going to present what we know. So just a little bit about how we got the vaccine and how it will get here. We've had a group of staff that the state published a process to apply to become a provider. And that group of staff have worked diligently through an ever-changing rules and paperwork to keep us so that we got part of the first allocation that came to the state of Texas. So kudos to them. They stayed on top of things, and we've accepted our first allocation. So I think most people saw that we were fortunate. We got a large allocation the first time. And one of the questions that keeps coming up is the allocation that is coming, this is only for first doses. So we've been told by the state, by DSHS and everybody else that we need to give all of this vaccine as first round, and we will get a second allocation for the second doses. So we can give all that we get. A little bit about the vaccine, and my friend Ozzy in pharmacy is still working through some of this. The vaccine has some very extensive handling restrictions on how long it can be frozen, refrigerated, and at room temp. Pfizer did a presentation this morning to help clear some of this up, but basically, the ultra cold freezers are here on site. We did think enough in advance that we were fortunate enough to get in and be able to order 2 of the ultra cold freezers before you could no longer find them. So became a very hot commodity item. They did get here this week. They are installed and they are at temperature. So we are ready to receive the vaccine. So in the ultra cold freezer, the vaccine is good for 6 months. You can take it out of the freezer, put it in the refrigerator. It's good for 5 days. Once you dilute the vial, and there are 5 doses per vial, it's good for 6 hours. And in the refrigerator, it's good for 6 hours. Once you take it out of the refrigerator at room temp, it has to be administered within 2 hours. So if you can imagine trying to go and plan ahead of how many vaccines you're going to need to get it thawed, refrigerated, diluted out, and drawn up in an administration syringe, that is a long process that includes a lot of steps that we're still working through. But Ozzy and the pharmacy team are doing a great job getting that planned out. So I did say the vaccine is not here yet. As Susie said, that the initial FDA hearing was yesterday. Once the EUA is granted, the vaccine will ship from Pfizer to the distribution points. So state of Texas was allocated to receive about 1.4 million doses. Once they get those, those will start rolling out to the facilities that were approved in the first allocation. So as Susie said, the initial FDA hearings were yesterday. They voted to approve, but it's still got to go to the larger group. And Mark was talking about some of the contraindications and side effects. We should get more information once the EUA is done, and we'll get more information through that. And we want to continue to work to provide answers to be as transparent as possible. And that's part of the reason that we're doing this roundtable is we want to get the information out there and tell you what we know, even though it could change down the road. So what is the process as we know right now to get the vaccine here at Cook? So as Mark said, vaccine is completely voluntary. There's no mandate that you have to get it. It is a personal decision, and people will make that decision for themselves. So first step to getting this is not long after this roundtable is completed, we are going to send out what we can call a questionnaire or a survey. And it's going to just ask a few questions. There'll be a link to it. It'll pre-populate with your information. And it's really going to ask, and the intent is, yes, I want to receive the vaccine, or no, I don't want to receive the vaccine. And what we need is, what are our number of yeses right now, so we can look at our allocation to make sure we believe we have enough vaccine for everybody that's going to want it, but we don't know until those surveys come back. Do keep in mind that the survey questionnaire will remain confidential. It will remain outside your personnel file. It's really just for us to be able to collate the information that we need. you can't, if you put no right now because you are not sure that you want to take the vaccine, you want to see what happens, you can change your response down the road to a yes by filling out a new form. And what that does, though, is it could delay you getting your vaccine depending on how much allocation we have left. So we do encourage people and stress, please return the questionnaire as soon as possible. It will help us in planning. It will help us make sure that everybody that wants a dose, we can get a dose too. If you don't return the form, we're going to put you in the maybe category, which means you are thinking about it, but you're not a firm yes or a firm no. So again, please get with your staff. And I understand the timing is bad. I know it's a Friday to send that out. Unfortunately, it's just the timing issue with when the vaccine is going to appear and get here. So step two, once we have the group of people that say yes, they want to receive the vaccine, the plan is that you would be able to go in and schedule your vaccine. So when we look at that scheduling, there has been some guidance that's come from the state, that's come from CDC. So those guidelines that we're working with right now is that we're going to try to ask you to schedule your vaccination when you have 24 to 48 hours off. So that way, if you have side effects, which we've heard about, they seem minimal, but it will give you time to recover from that vaccine. And, that way you're not working the next day after you get it. So each director, the other thing that we need to try and do is that we don't want to vaccinate an entire area at one time. So if you take the PICU, for example, people sign up and we have a large portion of those staff that are all going to sign up on the first day. The directors will go through and review the staff there that are signed up just to make sure we're not vaccinating an entire unit at one time. And the reason for that is you can have some side effects. There's going to be some people that don't feel like working the next day. So we just don't want to impact staffing from that standpoint. So that we try to spread that out a little bit. So that's another reason for the survey. We'll know what department you work in. Also, we're going to say that if you're on shift and you want to come down and get the vaccine, we'll talk about where we're going to do that on the next slide. It may be better to get it in the last half of your shift. Again, it will take, probably 24 hours for any side effects, but you don't want to get a headache at the end of your shift if that's going to happen. So we do ask that try to come down in the last half of your shift. So this is a slide that we are still working through. So vaccine locations that we're looking at is we're going to run them 7 days a week in the beginning. The other challenges is we obviously have Christmas and New Year's coming up, so we're working through the schedules for that. We're going to open back up a Kindred drive-through just like we did for testing, and that's going to be utilized for staff that are off campus. And part of the issue with this vaccine and why I went through of how many hours it can be out of the fridge is it is impossible for us to transport that vaccine off-site. So there's just not a way to keep it at the temperature it needs to be and it still be an effective vaccine when we administer it. So unfortunately, we're going to have people that work off-site come to the Kindred drive-through. On campus locations, so for the people that, and there was a discussion about what is on campus. So basically, if you can walk to the Hochberger, then we're going to have a site set up there within Decker that if you're on shift or you're on main campus and you can walk down there, you'll come to that location. So you'll be able to schedule using these parameters the place that you want to get your vaccination done. So I would give you the hours for these, but honestly, they're going to change over the next little bit as we look at volunteers to do the vaccinations. So more to come on hours. That'll all be included in the email about scheduling. So as Mark said, second dose. So the reason we want to get these done as quickly as possible is whoever we vaccinate on the first day is coming back 3 weeks later to start all over again. So in order to do that and keep the flow going at both of the locations, we want to vaccinate as many people in the first few days as possible. And you'll have the ability to schedule that second dose as well using the same guidelines. So what are the important points to remember? Again, have you and your staff respond to the survey as soon as they can. The more data we can get, the better, and the sooner we can get it. Review the guidelines around scheduling, as far as trying to have some days off afterwards. One of the biggest things is it is absolutely imperative that you show up at your scheduled time. And the reason for that is we're going to pull out the number of doses that we need for the next 2 hours to administer those. If you come early, you're going to take somebody else's spot in line and their vaccine that's thawing and has been mixed. Schedule's going to be likely every 5 to 10 minutes per station. So we're looking at 4 to 5 stations in Decker. So you'll see that on the schedule, but it's just imperative that you show up at the time that you have. It's also imperative that you schedule your time, because if you're a walk up, we're not going to have taken your vaccine out of the ultra deep freeze to have it thawed yet. So needs to be scheduled, show up on time. If we have no shows, if you sign up and then don't show up, again, the vaccine's only good for 2 hours. So we could end up having some doses that get wasted. That is reported directly to the state, and that will impact the ability to get future vaccine allocations. So please show up if you sign up. Just so we can keep the flow going, if drive-through or the walk-up, please try to wear a short sleeve shirt just so that people aren't having to move their sleeves around. The thing that we have been told, and it will come out as part of the EUA, that there's going to be a 15-minute observation period required after the injection. So if you drive through, we're going to have a place for you to park, watch for 15 minutes, and in the medical center, we're going to look at putting people in the Hawkburger so we can have somebody in there to watch them. So you'll stay there for 15 minutes and then go back. You can leave the site. So post-vaccine, and Mark and Susie have done a good job about walking through that, what those are. So, the question has been asked a lot, what if you have side effects and you're supposed to come to work? So right now we're going to say that if you develop a headache, fatigue, body aches within 48 hours of the vaccine, it is okay to come to work abiding by our current PPE requirements if you feel like you're able to work. So if you feel like you are, but you feel just a little bit achy, wear your PPE and come in. On the other hand, if you develop a fever over 100.4, cough, congestion, loss of taste or smell, then you need to call the COVID hotline. When Mark and Susie talked about the side effects, those would be outside of what we would normally expect. And it does not mean you got COVID from the vaccination. What the possibility is that you were exposed prior to your vaccine and you could have developed COVID disease from the community. So we need to evaluate you and see if we need to get you tested. Again, these would be side effects outside of what's been explained that we should expect after the vaccination.